What is up, FA Nation? This is Kevin Tompkins here, back with another Target Report bullet points for Week 8 heading into Week 9. That's right, we are already more than halfway through the fantasy football regular season, which is just wild to me. It seems like the Super Bowl just ended in February, but here we are, ready to highlight the most actionable information to bring to your fantasy football leagues. If you like what we're doing, feel free to hit the subscribe button on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel, as well as dropping a like on the video here. Without further ado, let's get into the most actionable information from Week 8 to take with you forward into Week 9. Of all the talk that rookie tight ends have gotten this season with Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, and Michael Mayer, Trey McBride hasn't gotten the recognition he's deserved over the past few weeks. As I've said, always a bridesmaid, never a McBride when it comes to me drafting him.
Just keep swinging on the rookies, you know?
Always a McBridesmaid, never a McBride. That's pretty good, Kevin.
I mean, that's a man who's been sniped on Trey McBride a few times. Still.
But with Zach Ertz hitting injured reserve for the next few weeks, the job belongs to McBride, and boy did he put an exclamation point on that. McBride was tight end 1 in Week 8 with a huge 14-target game, 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 39% target share, 41% of the team's air yards as well. McBride was already taking work from Ertz before Ertz hit IR with a quad injury, so that unfortunate injury just sped up the process for McBride. He's going to have Clayton Tune throwing him passes rather than Josh Dobbs in Week 9 per head coach Jonathan Gannon in Cleveland before the likely scenario of Kyler Murray's debut at home against Atlanta. But if he's going to be running routes on all but 5 of 41 total dropbacks for the Cardinals, which is 88%, then McBride needs to be started and rostered in every single league, no matter who is throwing him the ball. As gross as the tight end position has been at times, he's targeted when he's on the field, and he's getting a large quarterback upgrade with Murray's return in Week 10. We've talked about the post-bye route bumps for rookie pass catchers like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dalton Kincaid, and Michael Mayer, but that really hasn't materialized for Quentin Johnston. Perhaps out of necessity for the Chargers in Week 8, we could be getting that here. Johnston had his best game when the Chargers needed him, with Josh Palmer banged up for a portion of their Week 8 win against the Bears. Johnston saw all career highs in his stat line with 6 targets, 5 catches for 50 yards, but more importantly, a 22.2% targets per route run and a pretty normalized 7.8-yard ADOT. The Chargers offense looked more like what we've been expecting from them before the season, and it's no surprise that a healthy Austin Eckler reshapes their offense and takes some defensive attention away from Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, etc. For Johnston, his career-high counting stats and utilization aren't something we're necessarily victory lapping, but it's a positive note for him and something to hopefully build off of, because we know the depth behind Allen, Palmer, and Johnston for the pass catchers in Los Angeles is severely lacking, especially if Palmer and his knee injury are going to be a thing here in the next couple weeks. The Chargers drafted Johnston in the first round for a reason, and he's going to get the opportunity to pay that off in the latter half of the season. You can't start Johnston right now in fantasy unless you're desperate, but he does need to be monitored right now. Proactive fantasy managers can stash him if they have the room on their rosters for somebody in an elite offense that could work his way into a big piece of the massive volume for the Chargers. There are a lot of moving parts here with this Carolina Panthers backfield, both before and after their bye week in Week 7. The Panthers in Week 6 had Chuba Hubbard take 76% of the rush attempts, while Miles Sanders was out with a shoulder injury to great success. Hubbard's 16 fantasy points put him as RB13 that week. After that, during their Week 7 bye, head coach Frank Reich turned offensive play calling duties over to offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, whose last play calling stint came with the Miami Hurricanes in college from 2016 to 2018. In Carolina's first game with Brown as a play caller, they won their first game of the season with Miles Sanders seemingly third in the pecking order behind Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear. Hubbard took 71% of the rushing attempts, 66% of the snaps, and almost 50% of the routes. Sanders only took 2 carries to Hubbard's 15 and played 12 snaps to Hubbard's 45. Yes, Carolina paid Miles Sanders $13 million guaranteed. And yes, Sanders is probably a bit banged up right now. But look, Sanders hasn't played since Week 5. He had the Week 7 bye. He was not on the injury report in Week 8. So this is something we're taking a little bit as signal here. He's had all the time to get healthy. Chuba Hubbard has been by far the most explosive and consistent back in Carolina, with the 4th highest rush percent over expected at 47.8%, contrasting that to Miles Sanders, who is dead last among all qualified backs with at least 40 rushing attempts at 22.2%. We're not quite writing the eulogy for Sanders' fantasy value just yet, but the pen and paper are almost ready if this utilization for Hubbard holds into Week 9. Sanders is a non-starter right now in fantasy leagues, and Hubbard is in the RB2 range right now if he's getting 19 and 15 carries in his last 2 games.